in my view, academia has a writing problem. And our problem in academia as writers is that while we are, and I said that in many of my videos, and I'm sure many of you have seen, but while we are constantly judged, valued, promoted, every decision that's made about our career in academia, even to confer a degree upon us, is predicated on our ability to write original research, right? We go take a degree, we learn a body of knowledge, and then we insert ourselves into that body of knowledge by formulating, conceptualizing, planning, organizing, and then writing and defending an original piece of research. However, as academic writers, we rarely get trained to develop a writing practice. We are not trained as writers. In fact, the people who train us as writers, as well-intended as they are usually not well-trained as writers themselves. Our professors may themselves be people that do not know how to organize their own writing. They don't know how to teach you to, get through a writing project without panic, et cetera, et cetera. And so while there is a body of knowledge out there, and we're academics, right? We appreciate cumulative body of knowledge, where people have, from experience, from practice, and from research, have offered many insightful, useful, doable interventions to help develop a writer as a craft person. I don't want to say craftsman, right? But the craft and the art of writing is something you can teach yourself to become a mastering, right? It's a set of skills. And yet, when we are going for a graduate program, when we go to a university, we rarely get trained in that art and the craft. So this is what the class, the reason I developed this class was because I myself, and this is, the moment where I tell my personal story, I myself, as a struggling academic writer, I hit a wall. So what happens is, you start your career, you teach yourself how to write. Many times you create very negative habits where you learn how to write to a deadline. You learn that when your back is to the wall, you're going to somehow produce a piece of writing. And this can kind of carry you through seminar papers. Many people have their first big meltdown in, when they have their MA thesis or their dissertation, a bigger project, and all of a sudden, all of these techniques that are avoidance until the last minute and then binge writing can backfire, and you can get in a really stressful, panicky situation. Now, I used to hear advisors, my fellow professors, say things like, oh, you know that a student is going to have a breakthrough when they have the meltdown. And while that is true, this is hardly a good substitute to actually teaching students and training them, students and early career faculty, teaching them a writing practice that will carry them through without having to reach a moment of panic. All right, so now we're at 1:15. I think we've had enough people join us. I will go back and introduce myself because I realized I didn't. Most of you know me. My name is Dr. Shahaf. I'm a global media scholar, currently affiliated with the Department of Radio, Television, and Film at the University of Texas in Austin. But more than anything else right now, I have my own business. I do creativity, unblocking, and basically I help people with writer's block. I specialize in academic writers, but also many other type of writers. And I really enjoy working with people to teach them how to unlock their flow. And I know that sounds so not sciencey and so woo-woo, but really this is science-based and very grounded in research and facts. So I want to jump actually to a question that I faced in another, I grappled with this week with a friend on a different Facebook group, and she was asking this question, and the question was something like that. How do, I'm at home, I have my kids at home, I'm struggling with a full load of teaching this summer. How do I motivate myself? That was the question. How do I motivate myself to still stay on my research and my writing? And this is where I'm giving this as an example because I want to give you a sense of how how based in understanding the research and the science this my approach is. So, you know, I really wanted to slow her down and zoom in on the question of motivation, because she was asking, how can I motivate myself? And then I asked her, okay, can we ponder for a minute this question of motivation? And the reason I've brought this up is because there is so much research that shows that for creative assignments, the kind of incentivization and motivation that most of us as academics are used to apply for ourselves, which is the reward punishment kind of paradigm, right? If you get a lot of writing done and you get published, you will be promoted or you will get a degree, and if you don't, you will not, and you will face consequences. That kind of incentivization is actually not effective at all when you are dealing with a creative task, and writing is a creative task. So I don't know if you guys have seen this Netflix show that I think it was called like 100 Humans or something, but they actually did the experiment based on this research. This is research. I'll post the links later, but this is peer-reviewed, published research. But they took two groups and they gave them an assignment that was very creative. They needed to build something, like to think outside of the box, and they told one group, just play, just do it, you know, enjoy yourself. And then the other group, they said, they divided them to smaller groups, and they said the group that will win would get a very high monetary reward. It was, for me, very little surprise to discover that in the room where they told everybody, just enjoy yourself, play, you know, figure out, you know, every single group had a great project. The solutions they came up with were very creative. And, you know, they were so collegial, and they collaborated, and everybody got a chance to talk and to shine and to show what they can do. And in the other group, people fell apart, they panicked, and their results were not as good. Now, if the assignment is technical, right? If you take a bunch of people and you say, you got to stuff envelopes or something like that, and you give them a set time and you say, if you get more done, you'll get more money. 100% yes. For that kind of assignment, for a mechanical assignment, that kind of incentivization works. But when you take something like writing, which is a creative endeavor, and you place yourself into a mind frame, a mindset of motivating yourself through reward and punishment, you're up shit creek with no paddle. So the agenda for my overall for the class, and I will talk in a minute about the syllabus, and I actually posted on the group today, you can see the syllabus for the class and how the flow of topics. But the agenda is to shift your perspective and the way you approach your writing practice. And before that, let me just back up and say, it's to convince people and show them that it's worthwhile to actually develop something called a writing practice. That writing is a process that you can develop skills in. And you know, this has to do with every element of writing. This has to do with craft, and this has to do with style, but it also has to do with how do you organize your time. You know, learning how to organize your time for your workday, right? So for example, we have a week, we talk about time. And when I talk about time, I'm talking about the timeline for the project that you take on, but also the timeline for your own week. You know, if you are teaching a full load or you're in a summer break, if you have your kids at home, etc., that shifts constantly. So when you develop a writing practice, the way I invite my students and people I work with to develop a writing practice, I invite you to become very mindful about all the different elements that go into something like planning your time, and the fact that you have to allocate time to plan time constantly. You know, it's not like a one-time thing. You need to constantly be evaluating your relationship with time. And again, there's the timeline for a specific project, and there's the timeline for you know, your schedule for, you know, the academic year. You can plan the month, you can plan the week, but then we also talk about the over planning and the perils of over planning. What happens when, you know, you get so organized that you don't leave oxygen in the room for the creative process, because you can organize and you can allocate time for writing, but we all know that we can come to our writing desk, and this is, by the way, this is my writing area, right? You can come to your writing desk and the kids have a sitter and all of this is organized, and then you're stuck. So don't worry, I got you with this, because we are going to talk about the many reasons people get stuck. If you're in the class, you're always invited to, it's very interactive. You're always invited to share your own insight. We'll do a lot of hands-on exercises, and we'll do a lot of you'll be invited to be very curious and exploratory about your own reasons to getting stuck. And by the way, okay, so I want to talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but all of this was to just say, I am going to assign weekly readings. Everything will be available for you on the website. This is a graduate class to retrain you as a writer from a much more self-compassionate, self-aware, practice and process-oriented, right? So we're not thinking just about the product, but we're thinking about the process. Okay, let me get back here. So I want to talk about, what do I want to talk about next? All right, so I talked about the fact that academia has a writing problem. I talked about the incentivization motivation issue as one example for something that when you actually take the time and you think through and you go and see the research, you can see why the environment we have in academia surrounding writing can trip us up and actually create an unhelpful kind of feedback loop that's going to get us stuck. But I want to talk about the inner environment as well that we bring into our writing as academics. And this is something that, again, the class early on would invite you guys to, the participants, to ponder and think through. So, perfectionism, imposter syndrome. I can talk more about all that. I'm assuming you guys know what that is. Why do we have so many people in academia that suffer from debilitating perfectionism? I mean, perfectionism it's not all bad, right? We need a part of us that's perfectionist, because that's the part that pushes us to make, to polish a project into the jewel that it needs to be. But we all know the moment where your own perfectionism ends up derailing you completely, and you don't make progress because you constantly edit, everything you write, or you don't even write because you become, so anxious that it's not going to be perfect and it's not going to be good enough, that you just create a bad kind of habit that when you come into your workspace to start working, you're already so anxious about how it's not going to be perfect, that your anxiety just becomes so bad that you can't even start. So we will be definitely talking and exploring these things. So with that, what I want to say is we really need to, what I do is I invite people to really think about their relationship with, not just with writing, but specifically with academic writing, because that is a very old relationship in our lives. We all went to school, okay? If you are in academia and you have an academic career, 9 times out of 10, if not more, you're the kind of person who did really good at school. And that was what you knew you could bring back to your parents, good grades, and your teachers don't like you, maybe your friends don't like you as much, or maybe they do, but maybe you're not an athlete, maybe this is your thing. And in a way, that becomes a double-edged sword. Because if we learn throughout life that success in school, quote unquote, is our thing, what happens many times when you are somebody that's doing this as a career is that this thing backfires, and I'll explain why. When you do well at school, that's most of the time it's regurgitative, right? You learn how, you learn math, and then you do well on the test. Or even when you learn literature, I was really good at literature in school. But, the teacher would explain the poem, and then I knew to write really well an analysis of the poem in the test. That is not at all the kind of skill and what you're drawing on when you are writing your own original contribution. What happens is so many times is we were used to be so excellent in school, and then we need to draw on our creative internal flow of the unique contribution that we have, but we are not trained to patiently wait out for that. That's a very different thing than doing well on an exam. So we become, we suffer because we don't feel that motivation. So back to my friend who were asking, how can I motivate myself? It's this kind of, I'll motivate myself by trying to pull myself up to focus on, a way to do the thing I have to do to prove myself to other people outside in the world. Because you can hear that this person is depleted. You can hear that this person is like, here, she has her kids at home. She is teaching full time. She needs to still publish research. And you can just hear the fatigue and the exhaustion in the question itself. What I invite people to do, and what I actually went and just chatted with her because I was like, oh girl, come on, let's talk. I invited her to remember, to just close her eyes and remember in her own body how it felt the last time she got to write from a place of passion. Because again, when we choose to do this as a career, it means we love this kind of writing. So how many of you, and I don't know if you can wave on the Facebook thing, right? How many of you, feel that when you start struggling and getting stuck in your writing, you're asking yourself this question, why am I doing this? I used to love writing this. I used to enjoy analyzing film. I see some film scholars here. I'm doing urban geography. I am passionate about it because I know it's an important thing to do. But you just feel so locked out of it when you only know to motivate yourself to get an external validation, to assuage your professors or then your supervisors, etc. All right, so the shift is to find this inner motivation, and what we call in the coaching world, right? Align with that. Align with this idea that there is a fountain that comes from inside. It's, our passion to make a contribution. And when you make a contribution through your writing, in the writing world, we call this, having a voice. When you write, that's your original voice. So I will tell you this in this, when I teach this workshop, although people are many times, are hoping to come in and start, immediately hacking the outline for their book, which we can do some of, but, and they might be like, wait a minute, we're talking about the psychology of writing here. But I've not seen yet somebody come to this class and starts, and when they respond to the invitation to look at these kind of meta things about their writing, their own relationship with the writing, their own relationship with the motivation, a weight lifts. And, at week 2, usually people come in and say, I've written more than I've written all year after, just this first class, although they don't understand exactly why. Just talking about it, just being mindful. So shifting into, not into this frantic rat maze where you're like, I have to write, I know I have to write for my career, why can't I, oh my God, I'm such a lazy blah, 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 or, why can't I cope with this better? When you invite people to just leave that self-critical voice alone for a minute and try to create this space of curiosity and exploration about their writing practice and the reasons why they may get stuck in it, just lifts a weight off people so many times. So yeah, then we can empower you to explore your own practice and your own reasons for writing what you write. And sometimes you might discover that the project you were trying to work on got old for you and you don't want to do it anymore. And let me tell you, as somebody that, I've been in that situation where I wasted 2 more years trying to get a book done from a project that got old because of what to do. I had two babies in the meanwhile. It was more waste of time, and just pushing forward with a new project was the answer for me. So for example, this is something an insight that can emerge from that kind of approach. All right. Another thing. So let me talk about the syllabus for a minute. So those of you, if you're on the group, I'm not sure you can actually watch the live and look at it. So let me open this on my own computer so I can go through some of the information that I put in for the class. But I'm going to scroll down first to look at the flow of topics. So week 1, we look at writing as a process, right? So this idea that writing, you know, process rather than product-oriented approach to writing. I'll quickly just jump in because I think we have time to, you know, this is a story I tell often in my classes. When I was a harried mother of a newborn, tenure-track professor with a 2-year-old as well, and I had a newborn, I remember going to my coffee shop in the morning, trying to get my writing on and just being completely frantic and locked out of it. And I ran across, or you know, I stumbled upon a quote from John Irving. I think I have it up here somewhere, where he said, where is it? If you presume, there you go. If you presume to love something, he was talking about writing. If you presume to love something, you better love the process of it more than you like the product. And I remember, again, I told this story before, I got angry. That quote made me angry because I could not imagine being more in love with the process of writing than I would be happy with having a book out or an article out or a special issue out. But you know, then you start having books out and special issues out and articles out, and you see the cost of you know, going about it through forcing yourself. And so that quote kind of stayed in my mind because after a while I started understanding that I got angry because I also wanted to love my process. I felt that I was robbed of something by not being able to love my process. So that kind of started me on the way. So the first class in the workshop always is writing as process. And again, I really created this syllabus with, you know, student outcomes and all of that, right? So shifting the perspective from product to process orientation, understanding the fundamental elements of your writing process and practice. You guys can read later, but then you can see that each class also has readings, and then each week we also have writing practices, and I will always be offering a lot of extra writing practices if you want to do, but we will be introducing interventions that are time-tested, like writing morning pages, journaling, artist dates, all sorts of things like that. Then the second week goes into dealing with the ugly triplet: avoidance, resistance, and blocks. We will talk. Listen, guys, as academics, you might appreciate, I discovered when I went on this journey that there is a vast literature from psychology and childhood development and theories of art and of creativity. There is a very useful body of work on the phenomenon of writer's block. But I will also say that I do know it's very hard sometimes for academic writers to actually even talk about writer's block because it's a taboo topic. I have a video on this on my YouTube channel. Why is writing block a taboo? And you know, long story short, we are supposed to always come in academic settings like the conference, for example, right? And boast and, you know, project success out, like project that we know what we're doing and we know where we're going. You know, you're never supposed to come in and be like, I'm really stuck on this book. You know, you're supposed to be like, my work is amazing and all of this, because you're always, you know, either you're trying to create a network or, you know, you're trying to make sure for your next job, blah, blah, blah. So there's really very little, only maybe between close friends, moments in academic settings where we are sharing our vulnerability around the writing process. People tend to just try to project success. So it becomes this, you know, I even heard this in academic corridors where people are like sharing their concern, which is passive aggressive, to we can, you know, screw this person because I'm so concerned about their productivity, right? So this concern for productivity becomes a way to single out the weak gazelle in the pack, if you will, so in the herd. So it becomes a really fraught kind of defensive place where you don't want to come necessarily out and say, I'm really struggling with my writing, or not even really struggling, but I have some struggles. So it becomes taboo. All right. So then, however, there is a really useful and very vast body of knowledge to talk about what creates writing blocks, or, the writer's block is not this one thing too. It's a lot of different related phenomena. Some people have the traditional writer's block where they just, nothing comes out. They don't know, they can't even approach their computer. And they can't even answer emails. It's so bad that they cannot write. But other people are at their desk at 5 a.m. every day, and they write a ton, but it goes in circles. Guilty as charged. When I get blocked, it's not that I don't write. I write a lot, but it's almost like I'm so afraid I'm not gonna write that I can't stop and pause and become thoughtful and say, okay, if this is a chapter, how can I make this into a thing? I just keep writing and writing in circles. So that's like, just to say that there's a lot of different, there are many different manifestations for the writer block. All right, then we'll talk about, I talked about that, so I don't have to, we'll talk about, week 3 is called A Writer's Time. So it's based on this beautiful book from Kenneth Atchity. It's by that name, I think it's called A Writer's Time. Yes, A Writer's Time. I hope it's not showing in, it might be a mirror image. This is a fantastic book. It's also well known for this, do I have it here? Offering an agenda for writing a book in a year. And it's really kind of neat because the first thing he says to do is to take a break. So his whole thing is about taking a lot of vacations and making a lot of breaks. And he also has a really nice thing that I use in my craft part of the class that talks about the lost art of index cards and how you go about organizing your project, which actually helped me a lot, especially with writing, academic writing. I also do many other kinds of writing. But anyway, so A Writer's Time, which is a really good book that I recommend, and he talks about, he has this theory basically about the conscious and unconscious, but he calls it the continent and the islands. And it's a really nice kind of intervention that talks about how time is not necessarily this linear thing that we can control, especially in a creative process. And I'm sorry if I'm going fast, I just don't want to go crazy over time, but he talks about the need to integrate your conscious process with your unconscious process, both of which are important for your writing. And so we also, when we talk about a writer's time, we talk about the stages of the process. So we talk about this in week 1 when we talk about the process. And then when we talk about the time, you have to understand that every project has its stages, from the first seed that you sow, and then time to incubate, and you need pauses and you need vacations. You need to immerse yourself in the research, and that's a stage. That saturation, you need to get to a saturation moment until you have the aha epiphany from being saturated in the information. And then, drafting, which is, doing this on a computer, is only the 5th or the 6th stage of the writing process. So when you start looking at your writing in this mindful way, which this workshop really allows you to do, you are able to hold the space of, again, what we call in the coaching world, of self-worth around you, even when your job includes going into your office and reading the literature and it looks like a waste of time and you're, jotting down notes and it's just a mess. If you can just allow yourself. So what I do with students is I invite them to explore their own process. So it's funny, I see that Kiara is here. So Kiara, remember I once asked you the specifics back when, I was, maybe even a graduate student. I remember asking my friends, and I remember Kiara, for example, has this really incredible process for organizing all of her materials. I think you're even using an Excel sheet, right? So it's really interesting. What I do in my workshop and working with people is I invite them to actually legitimate their own process, because many times people have a process that really works for them, but they don't know to surrender and accept their own process. So again, during this class, we will be invited to journal about it, write about it, talk about it in the class itself, etc. Then we are going from week 4. So week 4, 5, and 6 actually goes hands-on to look at the actual, craft elements, how to. We talk about the cracking the formula for a research paper slash book slash dissertation or thesis, whatever it is, because there is a formula for. And again, those of you who know me from my scholarship know that I'm big on formulas and formats and so on and so forth. So understanding the convention and the genre, and this is where I want to just go back and reiterate. I always say it. Academic writing is hard. It's the hardest kind of writing that exists, I think, because it's bringing together so many, storytelling and reporting and explaining, data and also theory building and more abstract modes of writing. And you need to somehow bring it all into, this thing that you're trying to also make not boring. And so it's really hard. So we're going to be talking about how to go about formulating a research question and formulating a research, method, and understanding the relationship between, how putting together a topic is a contribution in itself. So understanding every single stage of, from the moment you come up with a topic, ask a question about it, what do you do to go about answering that question, and then reporting all of this in writing. Okay, and then week 5 talks about structure. Lots of stuff about structure, how to find your structure in the work organically, because many times our structure emerges from work, and you need to allow yourself to get into it. If you're trying to go from outline to final product, sometimes that can derail you. There are all sorts of tricks to get into your project and then discover your structure as you work. Week 6, I call it finishing school, from draft to final product. Again, going back to the stages. You understand the process of drafting and revising, the stages of that process, the steps and the challenges to completion. And throughout, we practice tons of tools for doing all of these things. So basically, let me see if I'm neglecting some big item here. We will be looking at all of the different elements in your process, your practice, your craft, and your style as an academic writer to do together. Now, I don't even know that, I think I've posted the information about specific things about, let me see if there's questions. I'm inviting you to ask questions now. I will now talk a little bit about how I go about, the logistics of the class. So I mentioned this before, but let me put you, okay, so the class is going to be done on Zoom in a Facebook group. You're going to get all the reading materials. You're going to get also, okay, I'm having here what you get. You get 6 live classes, not pre-recorded. This is, live. You're encouraged to interact live. It's going to be about 2 hours per class, maybe with a break in the middle if people go crazy. And then you get the PowerPoint presentation with all the information before the class begins. And again, all of these things belong to you once you sign up for the class. You get my intake questionnaire, which actually is a very powerful coaching tool. Whenever I work with a client, I have this really laid out questionnaire about your relationship with your writing. At many times, just by answering that questionnaire, people get a lot of insight into their process. And so I have all the students take that questionnaire and send it to me before class begin. All the readings that you guys can go and check out the syllabus. It has a lot of the resources. I have a lot of books right here. I think I've mentioned most of them before, but anything from, I love this one, Planning and Plotting and Progress. Like, this is a little book that's, for screenwriters and novelists, but it's really immensely useful to structure yourself for something like Clockwork Muse, that is Evital Zerubbabel's famous book about academic writing, or something like that, Thinking Like Your Editor, that has a really fantastic chapter about how you write a book proposal, for example. The Art of Slow Writing, which is a fantastic also book about reflections on time, craft, and creativity. So, I cherry-picked readings from this, or there you go, this one, Dancing in the Shadow Den, which I really love, which is invites you to do kind of deep exploration in shadow work. So each week you will be getting free PDF files with the readings ready for you to read, and you can read as much or as little as you want. And then I also recommend buying the books, but you don't have to. I give you the reading for free, and then you have homework, so multiple little options for exercises and hands-on practicing. For example, the week of time, everybody's invited to organize, we talk about different approaches to organizing your time, and we practice this in class, and then you go home and you try to make a really realistic, self-compassionate timetable, either for your week but also for your project, etc. Let's see, what else are you getting? A class syllabus. So I see the class syllabus as a resource. I now put it on the group for free, but I really want you guys to take this and also teach this to your students, because this for me is a labor of love. This is a service to my community, to invite people to start thinking about their academic writing process in a more reflective way that will allow us to also train students as writers, and not just as panicked last minute binge writers to the deadline. All right. And then Q&A. Each class will be interactive, and students invited to share their process and their progress and their insight. And everybody is expected to be thinking about their own specific project that they are working on. So, we will learn, for example, the one that I did, the last workshop that I did locally in a local writer's studio here in Decatur was really fascinating. I got to learn so much about, I had people from CDC, because we have CDC here in town, working on, HIV prevention interventions. And then I had somebody, a faculty in a history department, writing this fascinating biography for the woman who invented Thanksgiving, which was mind-blowing, and she's now making really great progress. I had a therapist who retired from a local university already and wanted to write a self-help book based on her feminist therapy practice that she practiced for 30 years. So really, it's really interesting in a class what happens when people each comes in with a very, very different approach and method and project, and together there's a synergy of support and advice that just is wonderful. All right. Last but not least, I do want to talk about the schedule. So I did a polling kind of on my group, and it seemed like 11 a.m. on a weekday. I chose Tuesday, 11 on Eastern time, seems to work for most people. Again, if you have to miss a class, you can always miss one and just watch it when it's posted on the group. But I really do recommend making an effort if you sign up for the class to attend, because I think that's what makes this class a little better, if I may say so myself, than signing up to some academic coaching service where the classes were pre-recorded 100 years ago, and you just watch, you pay all this money, which is more expensive than what I'm asking, and you're watching this pre-heated meal, pre-prepared meals. So it will be on Zoom, on the Facebook group. The cost is $399. Again, please note, I do not want to turn away anybody for cost. So especially precariously employed people, graduate students. I do want to tell faculty, you can use your research funds to take a class that supports your academic writing. This year, most of the conferences are canceled. You might have some funds available to allocate for this. I had a professor who talked to me and really wanted to do it, and at first was like confused about how to pay for it, since their partner was suffered from the corona situation, and then they realized, oh wait, I have this money just sitting around in my research funds. And so definitely, if you can afford to pay for it, know that if you're paying the full price and you're taking the class, that would allow me to give more discounts to precarious folks and to people who are, for any reason, underemployed, unemployed, graduate students. I really want this community to uphold and support each other. So, if you are interested in the class and you want to take the class and you can afford the full price for the class, know that I am including in that the idea that I could offer a sliding scale for precariously employed. Now, the first 10 people, that's the big marketing thing for today. I'm not a fan of marketing, but you gotta do it. So the first 10 people to register on full price only will enter a draw for a prize, and the prize is a 1 hour or one session of one-on-one coaching with me, yours truly. The value for that, my hourly rate is between $170 and $200 an hour, so you get to have that. Again, the first 10 people who will register in the full price, which is $399, would enter a draw to win a coaching session with me. There's also a premium package available if you want to take the class plus 3 hours of personal coaching with me. And again, in 3 hours, we can get a lot done. We can break it down to 15-minute sessions that are, I'm really good at having micro sessions when we meet for 15 or 20 or 30 minutes, and I get you going because you tell me what's going on and why you feel stuck, or I get it out of you, and it just boosts your productivity for that week. I'm sorry I have to toot my own horn, but that's the service. That's why I make the big bucks with private clients, because it really helps to have somebody that understands the writing process, especially academic writing process, accompany you through when you are in the weeds. In the woods, you are deep in it and you cannot see it anymore. This can be helpful. So to register, all you need to do is go to my PayPal account. All of this is on the Facebook group with my email, which is sharonsha12@gmail.com, or for our international, I discovered that working with international people, that it's really actually convenient for people to send an Amazon gift card, and then they don't have to send to pay fees. So I am open to getting the payment through an Amazon gift card or through PayPal. Let's see if there's anything else I need to say. So Tuesdays, the class would begin the last week of June. So I'm going away for a week, and then I'm going to be back. So June 30th, Tuesday, through to August 4th, 6 lessons. Again, not pre-recorded. You're invited to come in live, synthesized in a PowerPoint that you will be getting, will be the most useful, practical intervention known to women, this woman, to help academic writers get a handle on their process, develop a mindful, joyful, yes, I said it, you can enjoy this. Remember that early time when you decided to be an academic because you enjoyed writing a paper. We will figure out a way to reconnect you with this feeling in your body and move forward from that place to figure out how to connect to that inner flow and unlock your passion, so that your voice and your contribution, which is what we're trying to do in writing research, would be able to shine. When you will see gradually, when you start thinking about the writing from that place, and not like, oh my God, if I don't get these many publications, I'm not gonna get that promotion, I'm not gonna get this or that, or I'm not gonna get my degree if I don't finish this project. It just takes all the oxygen out of the process. So we are regrouping or rewiring, trying to rewire our process to center on joy. All right, so let me see if there are questions. Oops, I now lost all the comments. So let me know. I'm gonna go back. Sorry, this is not elegant, but let's see if anybody has questions. Please feel free to ask. I don't see any questions so far. So I'm gonna give you, let me see if I can see any on the group. I'm gonna give you a minute or two to see if there's questions. And if not, please feel free to contact me with questions or comments or concern or any such things. Let me see. Why am I not getting questions? All right. So since we don't have questions and we're close to the time, I will call it. I will wrap it up for now, thank you so much for those of you who joined us live, and thank you for those of us who will be watching later. You can always text me or ask me on the group. Yeah, nobody's asking questions. All right. So with that, I hope that you all stay safe and productive. And again, remember, writing, and especially academic writing, is very hard in the best of times. These are not the best of times. If you live in the US, you're not only worried, you're also angry and sad, most likely, because of everything that is going on that is kind of, crazy. I really invite you to name and acknowledge the difficulty that now exists for any of us trying to do anything that's not just sheer survival at this point. So be very kind to yourself, be very patient with yourself, catch yourself whenever you're catching yourself being hard on yourself. Let me see if there are some questions. Oh, thank you. This has been super great. Yay, thanks. Let me know if you have any questions. I really, it's kind of weird to just talk to the ether like this in broadcast. And also, I feel like a lot of these things I've said before. Again, I really do hope that if you are interested in this class, you consider joining. If you know of any students or friends or colleagues or neighbors, that can benefit, please let them know too. And again, I'm here for questions even at a later time. All right. Thank you very much. Shabbat shalom.